food is not just food for us. I mean, of course, it provides nutrients for us, but it's also food for the bacteria that live in our gut. And there are several components in food that bacteria can use, either directly as nutrition, or it will affect the type of bacteria or the number of bacteria that live in the gut. So some examples here, if you take bread, there's several fibers in bread. We already heard something about inulin. Also, beta-glucans and resistant starch are types of fibers you can find in whole grain bread. And these kind of fibers can be used by bacteria as a source of nutrients. And bread is not the only type. Of course, it's a well-known type of food that has fiber, but also, for example, if you look at banana, just one sort of greenish banana will give you about 4.7 grams of resistant starch. It's quite a lot. If you eat 2 cups of beans, you get 7.4 grams of resistant starch. And if you eat a lot of beans and bananas, you get usually a bit gassy. So that's because the bacteria are using the fibers from the food. Also here highlighted are carotenoids and phenolics, and I come back to that later because also bacteria can interact with those components in the food. And the most important thing about this is that the food that we eat can determine or at least help shift the balance of the type of bacteria that we have. So if your diet is good, or you eat a certain diet, it will affect the type of bacteria that you have in the gut. The fibers act sort of as a precursor. They act as the fibers provide nutrients for the bacteria, and so it determines sort of indirectly what kind of bacteria that live there. But also some food more directly affect which bacteria live in the gut. And that is because some of these food types actually carry bacteria into the gut. And this is something that usually is called probiotics. And some examples here of foods that contain bacteria are fermented foods such as yogurt, here is cheese, kimchi. They all are fermented foods that contain bacteria that are considered beneficial for gut health. Fermented foods are quite known for having these properties, but also foods that you might not expect so much, such as fruits, can also have bacteria that we consider as being beneficial for gut health or probiotics. And you see here an example of a pineapple slice. And interestingly, the different layers of the pineapple all contain different types of bacteria. So for example, in the outer layer, there's a lot of this Lactobacillus plantarum, which is considered a probiotic, while it's not as common if you just go a little bit into the pineapple. So it's a different type of environment where the bacteria can live. So as I said, the food that you eat affects the bacteria and also affects gut health. So eating foods that are considered bad for you, as we heard in Jan Erik's talk, a lot of red meat, for example, can disturb the microbial balance, and you might end up with having problems with your gut barrier loss, which we heard also is detrimental for your health. Inflammation can occur, and this might sort of speed up the process of aging of your gut. And why do we care about aging in the context of health? Well, of course, as you know, people are getting older and older these days. The population of people over 80 is expected to just keep on increasing. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're all healthy as we grow older. So the number of years that you are healthy should go with the increase in lifespan, but it does not necessarily do that. And you can see here an age distribution of the occurrence of colorectal cancer. And as you grow older, your chances of disturbances in the gut become larger, and your chances of developing cancer in the gut also become larger. So it's important that you age healthily, and that your gut also ages healthily. So this is why there's been a lot of interest in using prebiotics, which are the fibers that I mentioned earlier. So the fibers that have an effect on microbial composition in your gut, as well as probiotics, which are the bacteria or the bacteria itself, which we consider good for health. To use these pre and probiotics in food to affect or to restore both the microbial imbalance and even directly affect gut barrier loss. So in the next part, I'll just give a few examples of how we think these pre and probiotics can be used to age healthier when used in food. So an example of an animal study is a study in mice from a few years ago, where the mice were getting old, and as they were aging, they were given a diet which contained a lot of resistant starch, which is one of the prebiotic fibers. And this study showed that when you give mice a diet which contains a lot of resistant starch, and this is a lot, this is about 36% of their diet, it increased gut hormone signaling. The gut remained active for longer at a later age. It improves structure and functioning of the gut. So overall, the gut was doing better what it was supposed to do. And also, it had a beneficial effect on the behavior of the mice. So as you grow older, usually there's a loss of appetite at some point, which is called age-related anorexia. And these mice had a reduced age-related anorexia, which means they kept eating properly for longer. And this might have something to do with the good gut signaling, which was still occurring in these aged mice. So, of course, you can think maybe in the future it's possible to have some food products for elderly with more fibers to keep elderly healthier for longer. Another example is more on the probiotic side. So here's a study also, again in mice, where mice were given a certain lactobacillus strain as a probiotic. And if you look here at the survival curve, you see the mice that were given the probiotic strain, they lived longer, or more mice died later. And also these mice showed a less strong immune response in the gut, as well as less tumors overall. And another example of how probiotics can affect healthy aging is in C. elegans, which is a often used model animal. And what they did is they took an extract from this yucky looking substance called natto, which is often consumed in Asia, for example in Japan, for breakfast. And basically it's a fermented soybean. And it's fermented with Bacillus subtilis, and it makes these long wires connecting the different beans within the cup, apparently an acquired taste. And when they took an extract of this natto, the C. elegans lifespan increased. And of course, these studies are all done in animals, and they're quite recent, so studies in humans haven't been done yet. And there are a lot of problems with doing such studies in humans, but I'll come back to that in a bit. Then the polyphenols we also heard something about earlier today. And the gut bacteria can also help make these polyphenols available for humans, because a lot of them are actually bound to fibers. So when you eat a fruit or vegetable it contains both fibers and polyphenols, but quite often, or a certain percentage of those are actually linked together. And certain bacteria are implicated to be able to kind of rip open the fiber and help release the polyphenol so that it becomes available for humans. And so that's another example of why it's nice to have a good set of gut bacteria. So products with probiotics seem like an obvious target for, or an obvious thing to do for food industry. And when you look into in the supermarket, you will see there are several products with probiotics, different yogurts, for example. And none of them will actually say, if you eat this, you will live longer. If you eat this, you will not have any issues with your gut or anything. And then we come to some of the challenges that food industry has to deal with when putting such products on the market. I'm just going to skip over this slide because it goes with this and I only have 5 minutes. But basically the problem is that it's very hard to prove that something really is affecting your health. These animal studies are a good start, but before you're allowed to put on a label that this will affect your health, there are a lot of regulations that you need to deal with in terms of testing. So the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, requires long-term testing, meaning 6 months or longer, with protocols that they have made. And as you can see here, only 250 health claims saying, so a claim saying this product will improve this or protect you from this. Only 250 have been accepted and more than 2,000 applications have been rejected. So far, no probiotic has been approved. And in terms of fibers, some fibers have been linked to health effects, but none of them, but a lot of them are actually linked to health effects which have not necessarily anything to do with gut health per se. Sorry. Okay, but say you can get through this stage of testing, then you actually need to put the product on the market. And to market such a product successfully, so a product that has a health benefit, there's a lot of things you have to deal with. So it helps to have effective communication of the health benefits. So if you can really say this will improve your health in this way. But there's a lot of other things. Loyalty to brand. Consumers will usually just pick the brand that they always pick. So if you are from the competing brand, you have to deal with that as well. And and one of the most important things, or two of the most important things, are, of course, the price of the product. So if you make your functional food product twice as expensive, no one's going to buy it. And in addition to that, of course, it needs to be tasty, because consumers ultimately want a product that's affordable and tasty. And then there's a general consumer resistance to any food that's been modified. So if you call something functional food or modified or anything like that, there will be a certain resistance to it. And you see this particularly when you talk about GMO foods. So the golden rice is an example of a genetically modified food which increases the content of vitamin A in rice and has been thought to have the ability to reduce a lot of problems related to vitamin A in third world countries. But if you look at the resistance both in the public domain as well as in several NGOs are working against it. There's a lot there. It's very strong, the resistance against it, even though it can help solve a lot of health problems. And when you ask consumers, are you concerned about GMO in your food? Over 50% of Europeans will say yes. I'm very concerned about my food containing any GMO. when you ask consumers, what are the things you are concerned about in your food, only about 12% or so will say, I'm concerned about GMOs. So they are concerned when they are actually prompted to say something about GMOs. And this is, of course, a problem because regulations, or for people producing GMO foods, because the regulations say you have to label it. But as soon as you label it, you remind the consumer of what is in the food. And you might, they might have a stronger opinion about such things. And then finally, just a brief note about consumers actually buying the products. This is a study done in the 4 Scandinavian countries. And what they did is they took products, just general products, and either put a health claim on it or they had a control. And what you see here is the change in the response from when you put a health claim on it compared to when the same product doesn't have a health claim. And it seems that, in general, health claims make products less attractive, at least for Scandinavian consumers. You see there's also some difference between food types. So bread or yogurt with the health claim is not as much less attractive as is pork with a health claim. It reduces the attractiveness a lot. Interestingly, it also reduces the healthiness perception. And this must have something to do with this result showing that when you put a health claim on pork, it becomes a very unnatural product to consumers. So it's something that it doesn't make sense. So the medium in which you put the probiotics or the prebiotics will also probably affect whether consumers will actually want it. So to conclude, there's a lot of interesting opportunities for food industry, both using pre and probiotics in food products. But there's a lot of challenges in the what am I going to put it in, which type am I going to use, how am I going to technically do this, as well as market this product, and for who will actually be the ones who are interested in buying this product. So thank you for your attention.